Welcome to your weekly roar, where we break down what really matters. We cut through the noise and give you something you can use right now. So I'm Dustin, and today we're diving into our biggest takeaways from Consensus 2026 in Miami. Now, we know it's been a few weeks since the event happened, and honestly, that's intentional. Sometimes you need a little distance from chaos, the networking and the nonstop panels and the headlines to really process what mattered. And that's the thing. We got to get the noise out of the way to hear what really is important for you guys and distill it down to what you can take home and use. So, because Consensus this year wasn't just another crypto conference for the bros, it felt like Signal. There was a shift. And if you've been wondering where this industry is actually heading, this episode is for you. So let's get into it. Brandon, take us on.
So this week's spark is simple. Consensus 2026 confirms something a lot of people still haven't fully accepted. Crypto is no longer operating outside the system. The system walked into the room. And you could feel that immediately this year. The vibe was different. It was less when Lambo and more infrastructure, policy, payments, tokenization, AI agents, institutional settlement rails, real conversations. And honestly, that was probably the biggest takeaway for us. Consensus used to feel like a giant experiment. This year felt like a board meeting for the future of finance. You had major banks there, asset managers, payment companies, policy leaders, Fortune 500s, and the language shifted too. People weren't talking about if anymore. They were talking about implementation, deployment, scaling, compliance, utility. That's a massive psychological shift for this space. And one thing that we kept hearing over and over, stablecoins. Stablecoins were everywhere. Not a side topic, not as some niche crypto tool. They were being discussed as actual financial infrastructure. Global payment rails, settlement layers, treasury systems. And when you hear traditional finance executives, fintech leaders, and crypto native builders all talking about the same thing, you pay attention. The quick take, here's the thing that most people still get wrong. They think the next phase of crypto is about hype. It's not. It's about invisibility. The winning blockchain products won't feel like crypto products. They'll just work better. Faster payments, instant settlement, AI agents moving money, tokenized ownership, infrastructure that disappears into everyday life. That's where this is going. And Consensus made that crystal clear. Another thing that stood out, AI was deeply woven into almost every single conversation. Not as some separate trend, as part of the stack, AI agents interacting with markets, agentic commerce, autonomous payments, on-chain identity. You could tell people are beginning to think of AI and blockchain together, not separately. And honestly, that convergence may end up being bigger than people realize right now.
I'd have to agree. I think that is the biggest thing. And we've been talking about it for 3 years. Brandon, we started 3 years ago, or a little more than three years ago. And that has been our core topic, is what happens when AI and it work together. And so we've been doing that since the beginning, especially with NFTs, which everybody said NFTs are dead. And guess what? They're not. They're so not dead. So before we get into this next part of this, might be a good time to grab a coffee or reset for a second, because what we're about to get into goes a layer deeper. All right. The deep dive. Let's do this. Now, let's talk about what Consensus 2026 really represented underneath all the announcements, because there are a lot of announcements. And it was good to catch up with a lot of, OGs in the space, as well as some of the few founders that came. But beneath the panels and keynotes, there was a bigger narrative happening. The industry is entering its infrastructure era. Now, this is something we picked up on before we even got there. That's how we even were in the finalists for this whole thing in the first place. So we're the top 21. Being the top 25 is insane out of thousands that apply, but top 21, startups this year to be featured at Consensus. And it was really cool to be the belle of the ball. And we could tell you that that was the shift that we made that made the difference for us to get selected, was that we focused on infrastructure. We started talking about it for the first time in 3 years. That changes everything. The fact that the industry is entering the infrastructure era changes everything. Because for years, crypto was driven primarily by speculation. Let's be honest, how many times have you heard me say that crypto has been a great answer to problems no one's asking, right? So guess what? It's starting to become a great answer to some severe problems that cannot be answered without it. So we went from meme coins and cycles and price action and narratives, but what we saw in Miami was a growing focus on rails, payments, settlement, tokenized assets, 24/7 markets, digital ownership systems, even access solutions, things that actually plug into the real economy. So one of the clearest examples was the explosion of conversations around tokenization, which, by the way, if you know anything about Biz in the Box and you know anything about our platforms, we've automated this stuff. And what used to take, literally used to take, sometimes people would take up to half a year,
Mhm.
at least 20 some weeks, 250 to $320,000 to develop, now is able to be done in 30 seconds or 30 minutes or less. And what I was going to say is the tokenization piece in seconds, 30 seconds. Can do it in less than a minute now. That's real. We built it so it's automated, AI embedded, and whatever. That matters. That's us. So we were right in the center of that clear example of what's necessary for what's next. It's not theoretical tokenization or pretty JPEGs. Those matter. But real tokenization, real world assets that are already there or going there, public equities, treasuries, private credit, everything moving on chain. And let me tell you something. We think we're advanced in the US. From our conversations with our friends, Dubai is way ahead of us. Singapore's way ahead of us. They're already doing and using it. No more theory. It is action, it is real. When you start hearing companies talk about tokenizing ownership structures and settlement systems inside regulated environments, you realize we're moving beyond experimentation, which has been what Roar's been about all this time. What's after the big experiment? And we've been building it quietly with no one watching. Here's where things got really interesting. The culture tension was still there. There was still a little bit of it. You could feel two worlds colliding, but on one side, the institutions entering crypto, they're doing it because the technology is too efficient to ignore. They said that over and over and over again. They couldn't ignore stable coins and settlement across borders because even MoneyGram is listening. How many times have you heard me for the last years, plural, say MoneyGram and all of those guys like them are toast? When people figure out you don't have to wait 21 days, 7 days, 14 days, whatever, ACH transfers, even Swift transfers, when you realize that it can be done in seconds versus hours, days, weeks, I'm telling you, it's here. And so we got some feedback on our financial, conversation about where banks fit, and we were a little bit tough and we were making some aggressive statements. And let me tell you something, you may not like it if you're out there and you're a banker in it, but guess what? Your bosses, the CEOs and execs of all the big banks, we're talking about Schwab, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Swift, even the Fed, they're looking at crypto rails. Guys, it's here. So your bosses are, whether anybody likes it or not, that means we're right. So unfortunately, come with us. We'll help you, but your world's about to shift. These worlds are colliding. So on that one side, you got the institutions entering the crypto world because the technology is too efficient to ignore. On the other side, builders are trying to preserve decentralization, openness, and the original ethos of the space. And that's what I loved personally from hearing from the founding leadership from Cardano. I never heard more than from them. Charles was just all over Hoskins. He was all over the core principles of Web3. And honestly, I think that tension is about to define our next decade because institutional adoption brings legitimacy, it brings liquidity and scale, but also changes incentives quite a bit. It changes culture. It changes who controls the narrative. So here's our hot seat question for the day. We have these every episode. Here's the question you've got to ask yourself. As crypto becomes mainstream, does it stay crypto? Or does it slowly become another extension of traditional finance? Hello, you've heard us talking about it. So for the crypto world, this is a tough reality. For the banking world, also a tough reality, but both are true. So it's going to slowly become another extension of traditional finance. That's the real debate now. And there's an easy answer. So let's do the real talk moment and let's dig into it. So let's be honest for just a second. No crypto maxis here. No haters from the banking world. Just let's be honest for a second. A lot of people in this industry still think adoption looks like everyone suddenly using wallets and talking about blockchains all day. That's what everybody thinks, but that's probably not how it's going to play out. Most users may never know they're interacting with blockchain infrastructure. Most bankers will not have to change their practices every day. They'll just know things got better. The rails got swapped out while they weren't paying attention. Hey, did you notice things got faster, cheaper, more global? Did you notice it's more programmable? Did you notice it's easier to take care of the bad guys and the good guys? Honestly, I think that's the real victory. We don't need to be in here to prove one point or another. Why are we fighting with each other? Why can't we all get along? See, here's the thing. This is the thing. At Consensus, we noticed that there was a lot of those conversations where people were starting to join in the middle and get along. The side conversations often mattered more than the stages. I'll actually argue that I love being up front, and I sat up front as much as I could for all the big names and all the people there. It's my first time being in the building. I made sure I was there and showed up. And so I'm sitting here, interacting with people on stage. That was fun. But the real things that mattered for us were the side conversations, encountering some of the amazing developers on other projects who dropped some alpha to us. And we're like, oh my goodness, you have no idea. That radically changes something I was doing and makes it even more profitable. And the same thing for them. Some people told us that some of our interactions, they made the difference for the trip for them. One of them was a banker out of Africa. And he's just like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely exactly why I've come to America for this event. You have no idea. You meet the need. Can we just stay in conversation? You see, it's the hallway conversations. It's not always the polished keynote moments. It's the late night dinners, the random networking moments where founders and builders and operators and folks that need to use, build, and utilize talk honestly about where things are heading. And we were able to take so much away in that. And honestly, let's be clear. One phrase that kept coming up over and over and over again, utility finally matters again. And that says a lot. Another one that came up over and over and over is we cannot forget where we came from. So as you see things change and get better in the financial world, know what's going on. It's going on a blockchain and crypto rails, guys. They're already doing it, whether you know it or not. Whether you utilize the stuff, a wallet or whatever, they are. And know things are going to get better for every person because they're starting to utilize those rails. And us, we are OGs in this space. One thing we agreed on, we cannot forget where we came from. Utility finally matters again, and we cannot forget where we came from. That says a lot. So, before we land this, let's take a second and think about how this actually shows up in your world, because the next piece is where it all starts to connect.
And that means it's time for the roar. So what should people actually take away from all of this? Here's our perspective. Consensus 2026 wasn't about hype returning. It was about infrastructure solidifying. The industry is maturing. And whether people like it or not, blockchain technology is becoming embedded into larger systems now. Finance, payments, AI, commerce, identity, ownership, global settlement. That train is moving. And if you're building right now, this matters because the winners in the next cycle probably won't just be the loudest projects. They'll be the ones solving real problems, the ones integrating into actual workflows, the ones reducing friction, making making digital systems more efficient. And that's a very different game than previous cycles. It also means attention is going to shift. People will stop caring about buzzwords and start asking, what does this actually do? That's healthy. That's necessary, and honestly, it's overdue. The roar line, if there's one thing to take away, the future won't belong to the companies yelling the loudest about crypto. It'll belong to the companies quietly rebuilding infrastructure underneath the world we already use. And that's the shift. And Consensus 2026 made that impossible to ignore. 1 minute insight. Here's what this really means. The conversation has moved beyond whether blockchain survives. That question is basically over. Now the conversation is who controls the rails, who builds the infrastructure, and who owns the interfaces between AI, finance, payments, and identity. And the people asking those questions now aren't just startups. They're institutions, governments, global companies. And that's a different level entirely. And whether you're bullish or skeptical, it's happening.
It is happening. So, folks, that's the Weekly Roar. If this hit for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it and make sure you're tapped in so you don't miss what's coming next. Be sure to follow our show on the platform you found us on. And if you like our podcast, if you don't like it, don't do this. If you like our podcast, rate and review it. We love your ratings and review. It helps the value as well as the algorithms that make us more easy to find. We need your help on that. So we've got more conversations, more clarity, and more real insight coming your way. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, keep moving forward. This is your Weekly Roar.
Take care, everybody.